As the leading voice of modern psychiatry, the American Psychiatric Association works to ensure humane care and effective treatment for all people with mental illness. APA's vision of a society with available, accessible, quality psychiatric diagnosis and treatment has never been more critical, and health disparities have never been in sharper focus. This year's online APA annual meeting theme is Finding Equity Through Advances in Mind and Brain in Unsettled Times, with an emphasis on increasing knowledge and developing strategies. And we are here to cover it all. This is APA TV. Hello and welcome to APA TV and the second of 3 daily episodes brought to you from the online 2021 APA annual meeting. We'll be featuring some of the best research, education, and technology, nationally and globally, in psychiatry today. Coming up, I talk to APA CEO Saul Levin about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the nation's mental health.
COVID-19 has really driven home the seriousness of the physician and psychiatrist shortage within the United States.
Dr. Josh Morgenstein discusses the effects of trauma on individuals and communities.
Interpersonal violence, motor vehicle accidents, and disasters can have far-reaching psychological and behavioral effects.
And a look at the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and racism for the mental health of Asian Americans.
We've all been challenged to cope during the pandemic, and unfortunately, one of the least constructive ways of coping is by blaming, by scapegoating others.
But first, with so much great research to discover and exciting events to participate in at this online meeting, Dr. Jacqueline Feldman, the chair of the scientific meeting, gives her guide on today at APA.
Welcome to the 2021 APA virtual meeting for Sunday, May 2nd. We have an incredible day planned for you all. Our speaker for the 2021 William Menninger Memorial Convocation Lecture will be Dr. Anthony Fauci, Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. There are 45 sessions for you to choose from today, 15 each for 3 sessions. A few highlights to consider. Are you wondering where your work will take you? You might find the answer in a talk by Dr. Phil Muskin and his colleagues entitled, "Here's Your Hat, What's Your Hurry? Career Transitions in Academic Psychiatry." Or a talk by Drs. Talley, Minkoff, and Shoyinka on the Self-Assessment for Modification of Anti-Racism tool. The acronym for that is SMART. It offers a way to assess and address structural racism in community mental health. And Dr. Nora Volko offers her always wise observations in her talk, Collision of the Opioid Crisis and the COVID Pandemic. Remember to go to the virtual poster sessions and to the virtual exhibit hall, where you can register for a grand prize of a Peloton bike. Have a great day.
Now I am delighted to be joined by CEO and Medical Director of APA, Dr. Saul Levin. Dr. Levin, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing this for the annual meeting.
Well, as you are well aware, we have been living through a tumultuous time this past year, and it's been a very difficult year for many people. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted mental health, and what are the key challenges facing the APA community as a result of this pandemic?
Well, thank you. You're right. The pandemic has caused upheaval across the globe. It's not just the United States, it's every country. And I've been saddened by the pandemic response in this country up until the beginning of this year, where things have clearly begun to move in a really positive direction. But I think my sadness, in particular at the beginning of the pandemic, was that healthcare workers were forced to provide their own PPE, which was a major failure in this country. Physician leaders of the next 10 to 20 years are going to be working within and fighting to improve an American healthcare system that has serious issues, particularly where mental health is concerned. COVID-19 has really driven home the seriousness of the physician and psychiatrist shortage within the United States.
So can you outline the APA's advocacy work to address these challenges in mental health?
Yeah. Thank you. Good question. APA advocates on behalf of all its members and their patients. Psychiatrists are here to take care of patients that they serve. On a variety of fronts, we've really led our advocating around mental health, raising awareness of psychiatric issues, and fighting the battles that matter most for our profession. Right now, we're focusing on the access at the federal level in ways that connect patients to care and coverage, address the inequities of healthcare, particularly around mental health and substance use disorders, and invest in mental health and substance use disorder services.
Well, let's end on a high note. What are some of the achievements that have been made this year in mental health and in advocacy, despite all of the adversity we have experienced?
So I think the first real positive achievement for us was telepsychiatry. As psychiatrists, we're used to sitting one-on-one with our patients or with family members and our patients or kids and their parents, but telepsychiatry has been something for what some would do, particularly around rural areas. The next part is parity. We took a huge step forward on parity this December. The Congress passed a massive Appropriations Act, which included $4 billion, which will help people with mental illness and substance use disorders. And it was in part due to the advocacy of every one of our members, to Dr. Jeffrey Geller, our current president, who gave testimony on the Hill, and to the hard work of our staff that this legislation was passed.
Wonderful achievements in this past year. Dr. Saul Levin, CEO and Medical Director of APA, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now a look at the Menninger Clinic's work in suicide prevention using new technologies.
Suicide research needs to be at the forefront. People need to be studying this.
We have the opportunity and the obligation to do that. The work we're doing with wearable technology has the ability to really revolutionize patient safety protocols and improve patient outcomes.
Many people are not aware of the close link between sleep and sleep disorders and suicidal acts. And by reducing sleep problems and ensuring a more restful, healthy sleep, we can actually reduce someone's suicide risk substantially.
Our amazing team of faculty and staff, they all have such commitment and interest and passion and genuine creativity to address very complicated issues.
Trauma affects millions of people each year through interpersonal violence, natural disasters, mass violence, terrorism, and pandemics. Dr. Joshua Morgenstein discusses an upcoming session at the APA annual meeting, drawing on the vast experience of the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress, an academic organization dedicated to advancing trauma-informed knowledge, leadership, and methodologies.
Around the world, trauma affects millions of people every year, with many people exposed to several traumatic events during their lifetime. Interpersonal violence, motor vehicle accidents, and disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, and pandemics can have far-reaching psychological and behavioral effects on individuals and communities. Our talk will be heavily informed by work done at the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress, which is part of the Department of Psychiatry at the Uniformed Services University, the United States federal training facility for uniformed health professionals. For almost 35 years, the center has studied trauma in the context of disasters, including those affecting military populations, as well as the broader civilian society, learning about and sharing critical information across these communities through research, consultation, education, and training. During our presentation, Individual and Community Trauma, Impact, Risk, and Interventions, Dr. Gary Wynn and I will talk about the psychological and behavioral, as well as neurobiological effects of trauma. We'll consider a broad range of impacts, such as psychological disorders, as well as some of the effects that we don't think about as often, but are things that cause significant public mental health burden and morbidity. I'll talk about issues of who is at risk, what they're at risk for, and when we should be concerned. Just as it's important to understand CPR for use immediately after an acute cardiac event, there are ways we can support the health of our patients and community members after exposure to trauma. So we'll discuss early interventions after exposure to trauma, before disorders occur, to foster well-being and recovery. Dr. Nguyen will review current approaches to the treatment of trauma and stress-related disorders, using post-traumatic stress disorder as our prototype trauma and stressor disorder. And he'll include an overview of pharmacotherapy and psychotherapy options, as well as current evidence for complementary and alternative options. I invite you to join us for our session on individual and community trauma, impact, risk, and interventions, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Now a look at the development of a new wearable transcranial magnetic stimulation device for treating post-traumatic stress, major depression, and neurological disorders.
Every day, almost 300 million people around the world suffer from major depression disorder. Current repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy, called TMS, alleviates 50 to 70% of drug-resistant and hospitalized severe depression. TMS therapy has not been widely adopted due to its high cost of purchase and maintenance. Technical skills are required for position of the coils to the lesion site, and extra space is needed for accommodating TMS equipment. NeuroPrex MPX is a revolutionary wearable TMS device for treating depression, PTSD, and other neurological disorders. It is designed to overcome the disadvantages of current TMS therapy.
MPX device is different from current other TMS device. It's easy to use, it's more affordable for doctors, and it could also reduce the scalp pain and headache. That's the goal. We are trying to make this device more comfortable for patients and users.
There is much more to come from the 2021 APA meeting, and APA TV is bringing you all the latest news and highlights from the meeting and from innovations in mental health care across the globe. Here's how to watch. On the front page of the virtual meeting platform, on a dedicated page at the APA website, and on our YouTube channel and Twitter. Next up, Ginger is an app providing instant access to mental health care for millions of employees globally working through these uncertain times.
We have to be creative, thinking about where people can reach us earlier before things get to the highest acuity. And we've got to be creative in ways to improve access. Where everyone is, for good or bad, is in their phone. And what we'd like to sort of do is go right where you are to try to provide 24/7 access to some level of support.
Ginger's vision is a world where mental health is never an obstacle, where we solve this supply-demand imbalance problem, where we fix the stigma that today is associated with mental health care. We want everybody to realize that you don't have to be sick to get value from great mental health care. And when they have a need, there should always be access to providers that can deliver great care.
The National University of Singapore's Institute for Digital Medicine is addressing mental health and personalized care by developing wearables and devices for major breakthroughs in cognitive training and remote care.
There's a clear need right now to truly personalize how we deliver optimal healthcare to patients. For that reason, at WisDM, we are leveraging our technology platform to use only a patient's own data to manage only their own care. And when we do this, we can substantially reduce the cost of care while also optimizing how we deliver the best possible treatments to patients. And we're applying our technology platforms to everything, ranging from cognitive training via digital therapeutics, all the way to personalized dosing for oncology and beyond. A core ethos of WisDM is that technology alone cannot transform healthcare. And for that reason, we put together a team of engineers, clinicians, AI technologists, behavioral scientists, and healthcare economists to ensure that we can bring truly personalized and optimized healthcare to all.
And now a look at how the COVID-19 pandemic and racism is affecting the mental health of Asian Americans.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China.
A number of factors have led to the rise of anti-Asian hate during this pandemic. One is obviously the inflammatory political statements of certain politicians during this time period.
President Trump's blaming of China, his refusal to wholeheartedly disavow hate groups, and his encouragement of violence through rhetoric at his rallies and online have led to dangerous splitting and othering.
In 2020 alone, it was reported that nearly 2,800 hate incidents were committed against Asian Americans.
Scapegoating causes injury, conflict, and grief. The elderly Thai American man in Oakland who was shoved and killed in his driveway did not deserve to die. The Burmese American family shopping in Texas did not deserve to be attacked. And the 2-year-old child did not deserve to have his face slashed. I can go on and on. Nothing is solved by harming the innocent.
Regarding being a direct target of racial discrimination, this has tremendous insidious effects as well as toxic effects on individuals and communities that are targeted.
Hatred is toxic to well-being. Being targeted by discrimination and power imbalances directly impacts perceived safety and belonging, which impact mental health.
Actual fear of the possibility, even worse, actual experience of being threatened, attacked, cause negative physical and emotional reactions.
When an individual is victimized by hate activity, it can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, panic attacks, nightmares, and depression.
Research shows that the experience of discrimination, whether through institutional barriers or interpersonal interactions, such as racial slurs used by one individual against another, impacts health by operating as an ongoing stressor, causing progressive wear and tear on the body, which ultimately results in worse health outcomes.
In addition, these separate instances can reactivate prior instances of racial trauma in vulnerable populations, ultimately having a compounding effect.
Asian American parents have been more reluctant to allow their children to return to in-person schooling because of fears of racism, potentially leading to mental health impacts.
Some estimates are that 1 in 4 Asian American students has been bullied or victimized by anti-Asian sentiment during the pandemic. So no wonder the Department of Education has found that Asian American students are the most likely among all ethnicities to not return to school for in-person learning.
Recent research also suggests that discrimination may affect people through less direct means, such as avoidance of healthcare appointments or checkups. To address this head-on, we need bilingual therapists, caseworkers, and outreach workers who approach their potential patients where they live, where they work, and where they conduct their business and daily activities. We need to teach them to identify, practice, and address microaggressions at the time that they occur.
Please talk with each of your patients that either spontaneously share with you their concerns or may have known that they've had these concerns in the past in an open-ended, culturally humble, and curious way, asking them how they're doing and how the impact of these current events may be affecting them.
The APA newspaper, Psychiatric News, published a special report called Asian American Hate Incidents, a co-occurring epidemic during COVID-19. I'd refer psychiatrists and therapists to this publication for tips on counseling victims of anti-Asian hate. I'd also encourage reporting incidents to stopaapihate.org. It's an online reporting site run by Asian American advocacy organizations in San Francisco.
All mental health is cultural mental health, from neurons to neighborhoods to the world itself. As psychiatrists, I hope we can amplify our understandings of the social determinants of mental health and begin to understand the individual is not separate from their relationships or society. We are who happens to us and what we make of the happening, and we are all happening to each other. I hope we can make the best of this.
The drive towards equity and equality begins with really active listening, and I think in the APA we are in that stage of the solution.
We can work together as BIPOC communities in solidarity to dismantle structures of oppression, including structural racism in our country.
Moving forward, now is a historical and galvanizing moment and an opportune time for us to unite together to form solidarity, coalition, to advance equity and fight against any forms of discrimination, intolerance, prejudice, and systemic injustice for all Americans.
That's it for now from the online 2021 APA annual meeting. Join us tomorrow for our final episode. Dr. Vivian Pender, President-elect of APA, will outline her priorities for APA.
I am asking the APA to spend the next year focusing on the socio-political determinants of mental health.
We learn about the importance of nutrition in psychiatry.
There's a realistic connection between the gut and brain, and therefore how the food we eat impacts how we feel.
And take a close look at psychedelics and psychiatry.
Perhaps psychedelics are a bridge between psychopharmacology and psychotherapy.
Until then, goodbye.